controlled and coordinated by headquarters. So the question here, how can you manage, control, and coordinate 40 that many different subsidiaries across the world? So that is actually what global management try to answer. So in that sense, what is as the point of this chapter is 4-4. What is global management? So a lot of issues you have to handle here, but some of the major issues here is that we raised 4 questions. Right? Answering those 4 questions is simply you are doing global management. So number 1 is when are you going to enter a foreign market? So should we enter a foreign market now or after your competitors' entry? So you have to determine the timing. And the second is where, right? Which countries, right? How can you evaluate a particular countries are relevant market for you in the future? Say like Africa, for instance, big countries, a lot of countries, huge demand, consumers. But how can you estimate the future of Africa? So how can you estimate the pattern of customer there in the future, right? Without understanding, and also how can you evaluate like political condition of African countries in the future, near future? So without understanding that one, simply entering into Africa maybe increase your risk. So where you enter, right? Site selection things. If you determine to choose Africa, so which country is best your place? A lot of countries. So some countries may be providing good business environment to you, but some other countries are not. So we have to choose the right countries. So as I told you, like some of the like Office of International Investment Department in the company actually travel a lot. If you choose like several candidate countries and investigating which country is the best one, just company sending people to those countries and let them travel a lot, right? So meeting people there, what they want, even the that investors actually visit every universities and how students there are intelligent and how many say teenagers, 20s live there, which provide you, which may be your potential human resource and so on. So a lot of investigation from A to Z actually done by that for investment department. And another question, third question in your global management is like, how are you going to enter that market? So how enter? Are you going to enter with the, as we said, together with the company there in that country, or you go there all alone? So which one is more profitable and reducing the risk? So you have to determine that the choice. So what matter in global management is that like a lot of choices you have to make, but that choices, you may think that that choice is pretty much based on your kind of a critical analysis, but we can say that all companies tend to have their way of pattern in decision making. So simply means that they rely on their past experience for their future decision. Right? Like LG, Samsung, 2 competing companies, if you look at their pattern of international business, international investment, you can see clearly the pattern of how each firms are totally different. Like home appliances sectors of 2 firms, for instance. Like LG case, LG just simply go to Poland. All of their manufacturing bases are located in Poland, so collaborating Polish companies. So that's automatically their decision. So kind of a, say, strategic alliance, joint venture with the local firm in other countries, especially in Poland for European market. It's kind of a typical their pattern of decision. While Samsung case, they prefer previously 100% alone. Just enter a particular market all alone and then do something by themselves. That's pretty much their pattern of international business. However, yeah, those things are changing this day, but you can say that decision making does have some kind of a pattern. It's kind of a very firm specific kind of a management style, we can say. So so what is global management? So we just back to that question more, 4 questions more specifically. So let's look at then first questions like when would be the best time for you enter foreign markets? So why this question is so important? What happened to the Galaxy Note 7 this day? Exploded.
A lot are exploding.
Explosions, right? So why? Because I think that a new technology, something like that one, right? Waterproof technology things. I never use. How many of you have used that one? Oh yes. So are you going to exchange it, or keep using it? Is it new there? A lot new things. What? No, not really. I never used that one, but the newspapers say that a lot of new technologies are actually embedded in that mobile phone, especially waterproof things, and some like noting functions are different. So in that sense, that is kind of a first mover. That Samsung tried to introduce that technology first in the market, right? If you see the newspaper this day, a lot of newspaper criticize that Samsung was so rushed in introducing something first, right? But I just think that that's not always something to be criticized, right? If you look at the advantage of the first mover, you can actually earn huge benefit by being first in some area. So what would be the first? What would be the advantage by being first in the market? What? Yeah, impression. Yeah, I think that's critically improved. By being first in the market, you can give the public a very good impression, right? Impression actually lasts long, create consumer loyalty. So that's the first mover advantage. So that's why a lot of firms try to be the first all the time. So we should not criticize for that part, right? And what else? What other part would be the first mover advantage? I think the good impression part is quite important. That's I think a lot of companies try to get. Anyone who? What is the advantage of first mover? Yeah.
I think you can kind of dominate the market.
Yeah, exactly. In what way?
Because you're the only seller of such a product, so people's attention will be focused on your product.
Yeah, I think market dominance actually. Like I don't know how many of you guys here using shaving cream. How many of you here using shaving cream? Man case. Yeah. Do you prefer any particular brand? Do you have any particular brand of shaving cream for as your preference?
I actually just use my roommates.
What? Use your roommates, right? So.
What's it?
Gillette. So are you are you using Gillette all the time? Why?
It's refreshing.
Every other shaving creams are very refreshing. kind of same answer, right? Like Gillette case, I mean, like the like commodity product case. This is the case for male consumers. Once they have chosen something for the first time, then they just keep using it for the rest of their life. That's the kind of typical consumption pattern of the male consumer. Like Gillette, for the first time, enter into South America, somewhere in 70s. I don't know, at that time, South American consumers, the shaving their, say, mustache with cream was quite sensational, probably. So since then, Gillette used to be the number one, right? Market dominance by being just first. Like the mobile phone case as well, if you get used to do with some product, you just keep using it, because if you change it, you have to learn it again, right? So that's why I use, what's the name of the Samsung mobile phone?
Android?
What? Android, right? So because if I use Apple, I have to relearn again and again. So very slow learner for me. So kind of a market dominance once you enter first. I mean, in international business case, by giving good impression, then market by being first, having more market share, then the followers would be have to pay a lot more cost to catch up that one, the number one. So a lot of advantage in the product. Switching costs would be very expensive, so that's why a lot of companies try to be first. But what's the disadvantage of being first?
Someone can make.
What?
It can be a failure.
Failure.
It can be a failure. Like maybe people, their response is not as good as expected.
So yeah,
So there might
failure.
be not
So
such big
it's a new
demand as-
one,
yes.
so that very high chance of being failed.
Yes, because
failure.
you cannot guess the demand for that if you
Mhm.
are the first to
Yeah,
provide
so you
it.
just cannot guess what will be happening, what will be the yeah.
Not only is it going to be, there's a risk factor for failure, but also there's a risk factor for someone to make it better.
Follower, right? By learning your failure or by learning your trials and errors, can learn and improve, introduce better one, right? Yeah.
Usually the first person to enter the market has to pay a really huge price in
Yeah.
terms of research and development, like
Exactly.
disproportionately high.
Right. So probably a second mover maybe charge lower price, right? So then maybe the disadvantage of the first mover, right? Since they don't know the market, so and not enough consumers are there, so they cannot really lower the product price. So yeah, where's somebody? So yeah, that is, I think, first mover disadvantage. So that's actually where the dilemma of global firms really not know, should we be the first or should be the second mover? If you become the second mover, you can take advantage of just watching what first mover does, and you can copy and slightly improve of what first mover did, and then you can actually save money and so on. So, like in 90s, like a lot of American companies enter into Chinese market, right? Chinese market, and do you know who is the first company that entered into China market? U.S. company. Who's the first U.S. company in China when China first opened their door in 90s? What?
Subway,
Subway? Not really. Not Subway.
McDonald's.
Huh?
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's is kind of a first company in franchise restaurant kind of business, but not really the first American company. The first American company was Wrigley, the chewing gum makers. So, like a huge number of Chinese people there. So, like chewing gum is actually kind of a job which can do everybody. So if one Chinese Chinese person chew your gum, then just imagine what will be your revenue. So that's what Wrigley estimated, and they just enter into China market and made a huge failure. Why? That may be the reason, but in Wrigley's case, I think that the problem was supply chain. So when you actually make gum, you need like rubber, right? Rubber, import rubber, and make something, put sugar, some process, and then you end up with gums. But I heard that I knew that the rubber should be turned into gum in few days, not in few weeks. It should be turned into gum. So the process of making gum is not really that much long. But the problem was, like at the time in China, was the poor infrastructure. So the gum should be imported and delivered to the manufacturing site. But because of the poor infrastructure, kind of a slow, delayed delivery of gum. So the quality of gum was not really what you expected. So for first mover, as you said, like even if the idea may be good, but the company cannot be really master all of the market condition and so on. So they just cannot check A to Z about the foreign market. So like McDonald's case, first American franchise restaurant enter into China, but failed because of this kind of supply chain problem, but also because of a lot of competition in local Chinese restaurant, and because of that, the McDonald's had to spend a lot of marketing budget to educate American consumers about this is what American food and this is what American stars and so on. So even if the McDonald's sales was quite good, the cost of carrying it was so expensive. Right, this is what you call a pioneering cost. So when you become the first one, there's always a challenge, risk. That is actually cost. So the following, like companies like Wendy's or Burger King have learned it, and also they save a lot of money because McDonald's already spends lots of money for marketing of the educating American style food to Chinese consumers. So being first, followed by a lot of advantage, but it is not really risk-free. So there is an advantage of being first, but also disadvantage of being first. So so in your opinion, what is good for you? Being first or just slightly right after the first mover, like second mover, for instance? Which one is good for you? So that is a very hard answer to answer. In international business, certainly, no clear. It is kind of a very industry-specific and a product-specific decision-making. So you have to understand the nature of your industry and the nature of your product and the nature of how the local, say, competitor would react to you, and so on. Like a lot of IT companies also, like China as well as India, especially India, is a huge market, a lot of people, so automatically it is a very attractive place to enter. We know that also Indians are very smart, a lot of IT experts, many mathematical experts there. So like infrastructure, human resources are quite sufficient. So very tempting place to enter, but lots of American company went there and failed. Because whenever you do something there, the local companies, I mean, if you like in India, like every year, like more than say 300,000 say engineers are produced from the university and special institutions. So they simply loaned American companies high tech and set up startup as kind of imitation and become better from. And so you have to think about that one. Being first always guarantees success. However, that doesn't mean that you should wait. If you wait, then somebody else may be taking advantage of you. So what you can see here, just rely on what contingency perspectives say, the nature of product, the nature of competitors, and the nature of market condition. You have to see how those would be reacting to your movement. I will talk later, like theoretically, you have to consider 4 factors before you decide between being first or being second. Right? Talk about that later. But again, the point is the concern of the, say, international manager's case. Should we be the first one in, say, in foreign markets, right? Or a second mover? And the second question is, where should we enter? Right? The consideration of, so again, globalized societies and barriers are removed. So seems like the whole countries, all countries like are getting more similar and customers more like very alike each other. However, that's not true once you end up with the decision-making situation of where to enter. So like where to enter, which country is best one? Certainly you have to choose several candidates first. I mean, this is like what textbook suggested here, but actually this is what really company does. Like Samsung case, when the firm enter into European market, they have to decide which country is the best one. So, so they just choose several candidates, right? Of course, so when they choose several candidates, they have to think about this one: economic condition, political condition, social cultural conditions. So you have to, at this point, when you scratch the macro aspect of the analysis, like textbook recommendations are very useful, not only in university but for practitioners and so as well. Like economic condition, like the countries, each candidate should have very good economic conditions at the moment and in the future, right? So how can you estimate economic conditions? GDP growth rate, per capita income, especially also the exchange rate, employment rate. A lot of economic figure you have to find, like IMF, UN, generate this kind of market economic conditions prospect every year, so you can use that data. Also, each country produce their own, say, this kind of economic figures, so you can use that figure for your reference. What particularly important is exchange rate here. Why this is so important? Exchange rate. The currency fluctuation of, say, your potential market is quite important, right? Of course, probably you prefer a country with a very stable exchange rate. If a country does a very unstable exchange rate, then sometimes your profit in that country turn into your loss. That happened quite a lot, right? If you're, say, export size, your revenue of export may be more than, say, $1 billion case, then single penny increase or decrease of as an exchange rate may affect your, say, profitability. It happened quite a lot all the time for global firms, like Volkswagen case. When euro introduced in year 2002, what's the exchange rate this day, euro and dollar? Almost 1-to-1, I think. $1 equals like 1 point something 1 or 1.2 euro. So $1 euro probably very similar value, currency value. But when euro introduced first in beginning of year 2002, a lot of analysts expect that the dollar will be stronger and euro will be weaker. So that's kind of a common, say, expectation. Right? So, and there's no doubt about it. So the U.S. economy at the time stronger, and Europe slightly slower. So, quite obvious expectation. So, Volkswagen case, they plan to export a lot of, say, cars to USA, right? Based on that assumption of the exchange rate, where dollar will be stronger and euro will be weaker. Then export may be good option for Volkswagen when they export car to USA. Why? Once you say sell your car in USA, you receive in US dollar, right? And it should be converted into euro, but euro is weaker, so your dollar earned money converting into more euro dollar, right? Because the euro is weaker. So that's why obviously Volkswagen, the way to enter into USA was export. But what happened? The exchange rate was quite moved against what market expected. Like not really a weaker euro, but stronger dollar. So that means the money Volkswagen earned in USA, when it converted into dollar, they tend to have less and less money, right? So that's why the exchange rate is so important when you actually determining not where to enter, but also how to enter case, deciding how to enter case. And also exchange rate may be your burden for your, say, labor cost, right? China, we enter China because very low labor cost and weak Chinese currency. But Chinese currency now getting stronger and stronger, become another major currency in the world economy. So the advantage of China getting diminishing, right? And political condition as well. Probably a stable country, politically preferable, but also the government's policy on foreign companies' activities also you have to pay a lot of attention, right? In terms of foreign firms, taxation and their quota policy, labor-related regulation and law. Like in Europe, for instance, like if you let workers more than they are supposed to work, then you will be in charge of huge, like a fine, penalties, and so on. So you have to look at the regulations, right? Social culture as well. As people there are very close to you. Like Vietnam, for instance. If you say interviewing a lot of Korean managers, then they certainly say that Vietnam is very like Korean. So two countries are very similar in terms of religious background, in terms of, say, passion for education, in terms of working style. So your business in Vietnam may not be that difficult. So that's why understanding the gap between your country and the target potential countries, social gap, is quite important. So in international business, a lot of, say, frameworks are actually you will be studying, like how can you compare the cultural differences. The narrower that cultural difference, the more the chance for your international business success. Right? Like in your, for instance, international business class, you will learn like Hofstede. Hofstede is the name of the scholar who invented 4 dimensions of culture. If you try to understand cultural difference, you have to look at 4 dimensions, 4 factors. So what that 4 factors will be learning in your IB class next year, certainly. So which country enter? At the beginning, you have to estimate the macro aspects of your potential candidate countries. But at the end, one peculiar, say, factor may help your final choice. Like when Samsung entered into Europe, they finally determined Slovak Republic as their place for manufacturing the flat color TV. Why Slovak? So Hungary was, I think, the best candidate, and the Poland was also the best candidate. Why? But however, Slovak Republic became finally their choice. I cannot tell you why, but kind of a political things actually went on there. So even though all other conditions are not that good or just kind of average, but one particular factor may help you to choose the final, decision making. Right? So that's what happened actually in real business world. I introduced some of the framework, right? Like which country you better to enter, right? So this is some of the ideas that Professor Porter suggested. Say if you are, say, comparing, say, 4 countries, don't know why, I don't know which country is the best one, like South America, for instance. A lot of countries there, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and so on. So not really sure which country is best place. In that case, you have to compare those 4 countries in terms of these 4 dimensions. So country providing, say, one best condition, or country providing above average condition of these 4. That may be your place to enter. Again, this discussion is kind of a theoretical discussion, so real choice may be different. However, the practitioners can refer to the idea from here. Like factor endowment, how much that candidate country offer what you want. Right? If you want, say, human resource, then which country provide lots of human resource that you need? Let's say that you need, say, age 18 to 20 female workers, for instance, highly educated female workers. Then which country offer that many female workers at that age with, say, high intelligence levels, like more than, say, a high school graduate or university graduate. So you should be very specific what kind of a resource you really, really want. And a country offered that one maybe your place. So when actually you negotiate with your, say, international business with governments, then the government certainly definitely ask you, like, what do you want, right? So then you should be very frank on this one. We want, say, these people, like young female workers. Then probably the government may help you, I make sure that providing that relevant human resource at government cost, including training, education, and so on, then they may be a determinant factor of your decision making. So every government, if they attracting investors means they are, say, earning vote, right? Attracting investor means more job creation, and the government can be re-elected. Korea as well. The government here in this country, Korea, try to attract a lot of, say, investors from other countries. So try to accommodate what they want as within the legal boundary. That's, I think, all governments try to do. So a factor endowment is exactly how much the country actually offer, exactly as much as what you want. And demand conditions. I think this is quite important. Not only meaning the size of potential market customers, but also their anxiousness of your particular service. Like mobile phone, like Korea, leader in mobile phone. Why? Of course, the company may be good at making that one, but however, on the other side, the consumer here, like you guys here, really, really demanding with that mobile phone. Right? You do a lot, right? You do a lot of game, right? You do a lot of game and like chatting, right? You do a lot of things to do with that mobile. So very demanding, not really make a phone calls. So where there are high demand, and probably you may be tough in that area, but your improvement would be more likely. So you not only look at the size of the market, but how much they really want your product. So, like if you say enter into, say, Brazil with your, say, drinking product, and if they're not really anxious demanding from Brazil, then probably it is not the place for you to enter. And what is this? Related and supporting industry. Like this is exactly the failure of Wrigley in China, right? They just only look at the market size, a lot of human resource, but they just ignore the supporting industry. Somebody should provide rubber things to make the gum, right? So if that country offer a very kind of a small and medium-sized kind of like helping companies as a suppliers, then you may save your money, right? If there are a lot of competitive like small firms, then you can actually make a contract with them and your business can be more smoothly run, right? And firm strategy, structure, rivalries, like also how many competitors are there. If there are a strong competitor in that country, then certainly you have to rule out that country, because fighting with that competitor, maybe you are, say, leading more expensive job. So, and also firm strategy, structure simply means like what would be like working ethics, simply say. Every country does have a different styles of working, styles of management, and so on, corporate culture and so on. So you have to compare that things. So if you are figuring out what is the best one out of many candidates, then why not look at these 4 factors? So any country that offer a peculiarly best condition one or above average of this 4 one, then probably that may be your choice. And after the break, then we also think about then you know timing, when to enter. Now you know where to enter. Then the next question is how to enter, right? So there are a lot of options, but you don't know why, how, which one is the best one. So just talk about that one, okay? Let's talk about then the how to enter into other countries. So I prepared the PowerPoint and some reading materials, but I need to modify something there. So I will send you tonight, certainly. And when you actually enter into other countries, of course, you don't really enter into other countries. I mean, the way the company entry is not very different from your really entry into other countries. Like export, maybe some of the very common way of entering into other countries. Let's say that you invented this product. Your product is one beaming here things. So you invented this one, then you find that this one is very popular in Korea. So you thought that you maybe market in other countries. You say that you bring this one to which country? Anyone? What? India, for instance. Let's say that you now try to sell this product in India. So how are you going to sell this one to India? So that's your next question regarding the entry decisions. Right? Outsourcing simply means kind of a different story. So outsourcing here means like you see a lot of components inside. So you may find this is global world, so you may find some good supplier in, say, Vietnam. Right? So you may be supplied from India, Vietnam, at very less price, but very high quality of the component of this one. So if you get supplies from Vietnam firms, then you can make this one much cheaper cost. So cheaper cost of manufacturing this means that you can sell this one at lower price. So that is actually outsourcing. So that's nothing to do with the entry thing. So when you actually sell this one to, say, India, the first way is you can think about is what? Export, right? What is export? Yeah.
To bring a product from an inside part of your country
Mm-hmm.
to the outside,
Mm-hmm.
it can also be from the inside. If I want to export my phone, 15 tons of phones
Right.
towards Poland,
Right. So.
I can export.
Okay. So you just ship it, right? Shipping.
Yes.
So that's export. So what's the advantage of exporting?
Trade.
What?
Trade.
Trade.
Everyone's better off with trade.
So be more specific. What's the by trading this one, selling this one, by shipping? What's your advantage?
New
Exactly.
markets.
What?
New markets.
Yeah, there is advantage, but like other way of entry also have that the advantage. So what export really convenient to you? Yeah, I mean, every other option also may bring you a profit. So I think the best advantage of export is very simple, right? You just do what you do in Korea, and then just pack it and ship it. Right? So you don't need to hire people from India, or you don't need to make factory in India. That means so you can simply increase your revenue without actually causing any problem. So export is very convenient, simple, and actually you can send this one quite large volume, right? So what's on the other hand, disadvantage of this one? What's the disadvantage of export? Yeah, you have to say it's quite enough. Like export is quite politically sensitive, right? Very convenient to firm, but you may be say your expectation from say or export very uncertain depending on the political condition. Yeah. Yeah, I think you got really good point again. Once you export this one, then you never know what happened there in India. So you can estimate, you can rely on some, say, research firm and your, say, contract company in India, whether Indian customers are liking like this one or not, what other, say, they want more from your product. So when you actually export this one, your customers are quite away from you, so you are not really clearly understand how this product is handled there in terms of customer service and how your customers there feel about your product directly. So anyway, your customers and you away each other. So it's better to be close, right, rather than being away. So that may be a disadvantage. And also politically sensitive, like China and USA, when those two countries are not, yeah, exactly. That's I'm talking about wholly owned, another option. So we are talking about here export. So another option is setting up like wholly owned companies, just like the case you mentioned, like setting up a new factory line in other countries to take advantage of what you just said, right? Lenient countries maybe, so you can just run away a tough regulation to that countries, and yeah, then maybe some other cases. But that's a very good point. Like back to export case, two countries are not really, for instance, like in not good political condition, they just retaliate each other, not by waging a war this day, but by trade. By, say, prosecuting each other, say, you sell this one underprice, unfair price. So once you involved in that litigation, then your company may be in trouble. So you have to prepare a lot of legal documents, prove that the price of your export of these items are right, fair, manufactured in fair way, environmentally friendly way, and so on. So when your trading partner countries are good condition, good relation with your firm, with your countries, that's fine. But once things happen, then simply you may be in trouble and your revenue drop down. So that's the disadvantage of exporting it. And sometimes also the problem is that your export partner may not pay you. That happened quite a lot. Right? Normally in international business, like if you sell something, then you receive the money not today, but like 30 days later, 60 days later, and 120 days later. You just receive the money far later, a few months later. So that's kind of a routine in international business. So what happened, like if the buyer didn't pay you, then your firm bankrupt, right? Then you cannot pay your supplier, and supplier also bankrupt, so everybody bankrupt. So then maybe also the risk. Of course, there's some insurance on this one, but payment failure quite happen a lot, may cause you a lot of like documentation things and so on, legal trouble and so on. So, and the worst part of the import is that, as you see here, you just cannot really clearly study what customers want, right? So if you want to really understand more about customers, then simply you cannot sell better product to the customers. So that's the disadvantage. However, it is quite safe. Right? The initial investment of your export is quite low, right? So that is one option. What about licensing and franchising? What is licensing? What is licensing or franchising? Franchising is more like on the case of service industry, or let's say this is technology, right? So licensing may be better case. What is licensing? This one. Yeah.
Isn't it like giving your technology
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, technology for money, simply. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay.
Ownership of the product.
Yeah, ownerships of the products. You just having the ownership, but you give the right to make this one and sell this one to other party, but you get loyalty in return. Normally, normally like 5% of your revenue goes to me. That's what I call loyalty. So licensing is what I call a technology for money. So as far as you pay me as a loyalty, then this is yours. You can do whatever you do. So yeah.
So like let's say I created a product
Mhm.
and there were some people who wanted to sell my product for me. So I would just ask for a certain percentage of money they earn to me
30%, that's huge.
by giving them license.
Yeah, if you contract that way, yeah, you will.
That means I don't have to do anything, just
Yeah, basically, technically, you won't do anything, but you should do some kind of a quality control and kind of a technology transfer, right? So if your partner make a very poor of this one, then it damages your reputation, right? So you deliver some knowledge on this one, and also you have to like minimum levels of say control, monitoring your partner whether they are making the right standards that you want. So that is licensing. So what's the advantage of licensing? Less risk, right? Again, you can sell this one by their risk, your partner risk, but you only get loyalty. So you still selling this one without your own risk. Right? That's maybe huge loyalty, like Intel. Right? I don't know they is making the software, but actually the amount. I remember that 30% of their revenue is actually their loyalty. So a lot of computer set makers actually pay lots of loyalty to Intel. So once your technology is quite good, then probably loyalty may be option. So you don't need to be everywhere, right? So your licensing partner may do that.
how about services like Kickstarter? Like it helps people.
Yeah, exactly. Another point. So you can sell this one just right away. Quick start, right?
Kickstarter, do they get a certain percentage of
What is it?
Kickstarter?
Quick starter.
Kickstarter.
Kick.
It's like where people who have ideas come and
Mm.
they make their product with the help of the organization.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then
that's.
that organization will get a certain percentage of their product, right?
Yeah, that's also advantage. Yes. So if you are not really knowledgeable in that market, like Indian market, but still you are confident on this one, then licensing may be good option, very good option. But what's the disadvantage of this one?
You lose a lot of your actual profit.
But anyway, you are not really doing anything on making this one, so 5% of loyalty is quite fine. Or you may ask more loyalty, like 10% or. So disadvantage of licensing this one may be like your partner may say copy of this one, right? So they may slightly modify this one and sell under different brand name. And simply you, after licensing contract finish, probably the partner may not renew the contract, then you lose the contract partner and you lose the market. Right? So that may be the disadvantage of licensing. So if you are really confident on your technology here, no matter what, competitor partners are good, they never copy you. If you are so confident like this, then licensing is quite fine. It's just like Intel case. But this one, yeah, anybody can make this one, right? So anyone can be an imitator. So licensing may be option, but you have to drop find think about the drawback of the licensing. Franchising also exactly the same mechanisms of licensing, but franchising is more like service firms like McDonald's and Starbucks. So again, your say Starbucks partner may run the business of Starbucks, but so what you do is just you monitor whether your partner runs Starbucks as you want. Like there is a standard of service of Starbucks headquarters, so all other the partners should exactly the same way. So you have to monitor that one, and service quality should be the equal. All of the Starbucks branches should provide the same high good quality. So, but in return, you receive the loyalty. So, however, there might be some Starbucks copy franchise restaurants, right? So you see out there, say, a lot of say coffee franchise. Right? Probably they may get the ideas from the Starbucks. So you have to be ready for that imitator, copier, and so on. But again, licensing, franchising also options. You have to understand pros and cons. What about joint venture? What is joint venture? Do you know that the Samsung TV, like a few years ago, was made by Samsung and Sony together? So if you like Sony Bravia, Sony flat TV, still they are making. I think even like a few years ago, the brand was Sony, but actually inside that Sony flat TV, it is half and half between Samsung and Sony. So this is kind of an example of joint venture. So joint venture means you and your partners split the business like 50-50, or 70-30, or 80-20s. So split the business. I mean, you and your partner create a third company, and the third company owned by 50-50 or 30-50, 30-70, 70-30, and run together. The point is run together. So this is also a very good option. International manager studies this day strongly support that joint venture, once successful, is the best mechanism of your international business. Right? So you simply share the risk together with your very close partners, be responsible together, and take the profit equally depending on their ownership size. But what is the risk of joint venture? Yeah, betrayer, right? So you and your girlfriend fight a lot, right? Conflict a lot, right? You feel like happy all the time, but always there's a fighting, right? So two partners seems like happy forever, but always there's a conflict in terms of management, in terms of interest sharing, in terms of who contribute what, and that kind of thing. So joint venture case, the longevity of joint venture only up to 7 years or 10 years, and after 7 years they just divorce. So that's the disadvantage. So like joint venture, like more than 20 years, 30 years, that is a like extreme success case, right? But it is very hard to do that one. So we have to think about, if you find a very good partner for your business, then think about the joint venture. But what about the wholly owned subsidiaries? Just like Samsung rely on this one a lot in the past, just I don't care, I don't like do something with the partners. I have a competence, I have a capability, so I will do by myself. So that's wholly owned subsidiaries. So subsidiary means headquarters control that firm's 100%, right? So even if you enter into other countries, no partners, you just do it alone. So what's the advantage of wholly owned subsidiaries? Sorry, yeah, we talk about this one Tuesday, okay? So a lot of strength here. As you said, companies choose a particular country's a lenient legal system or regulation. So wholly owned subsidiary is a kind of way of using a particular country's weakest point. But there's also a risk here. So we talk about this one, and also finally, how can you choose the best option out of that many lists? Okay, so I'll talk about that one on Tuesday.